So, as you noticed, we have Judge Prost missing. She's on official business, and she'll be away the rest of the sitting today, and also tomorrow. She'll be back with us on Wednesday, when we will be sitting in the afternoon and not in the morning. So that means we're sitting pursuant to Rule 15 bis, okay? Mr. Meek, you still don't wish to cross-examine this witness?
That's correct, Mr. President.
I think it was questions. Madame Nikolic or Mr. Bougon?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a very short cross-examination.
Please go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Krajicnik.
Good
afternoon.
My name is Stéphane Bourgon, and I am counsel in these proceedings on behalf of Drago Nikolic. My cross-examination will be rather short. I only have a couple of questions for you. The first one being the following. Based on your testimony and the answers you gave to my colleague, Mr. Jivanovic, it would appear to me that the Republika Srpska government and assembly did everything that could possibly be done in order to avoid the war in Bosnia. Would you agree with that?
Yes. My view is that you're right.
And my second question, Mr. Krajicnik, is looking back at your personal role and involvement as the president of the Republika Srpska Assembly during the war in Bosnia, and I refer to the period from 1992 to 1996, what knowledge do you have, if any, of the existence of a policy within the Republika Srpska government and or assembly to get rid of the Muslim or Croat population living in Bosnia?
No, there did not exist such a plan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Krajicnik. I have no further questions.
I thank you, Mr. Bourgon. Mr. Lazarevic.
Microphone, please.
As we already indicated, we will have no cross-examination
No,
for
I
Mr.
just
Krajicnik.
wanted to confirm that with you. Madame Favot?
Very briefly, Mr. President. Mr. Krajicnik, you said a while ago, page 47, that you could explain why the decision to publish the strategic objectives had been taken only on the 25th November 1993. Could you indeed tell us why this decision to publish these strategic objectives was taken practically a year and a half after the Assembly of 92?
Could you please read out exactly what I said, because I'm afraid that it might have been mistranslated. I didn't say that I could explain why the decision was taken at the time, but why it was published at the time.
Indeed. There is a problem of interpretation. This is precisely the question I wanted to ask. Could you explain why the decision to publish the strategic objective was taken only in 1993?
I would like to refrain from correcting you. Rather, I shall explain what you're most probably interested in. I said that I could explain the course of the events that I explained in my appeals brief and what I was able to ascertain in the documents that I was perusing since Friday. And I can tell you why there was this this error committed in the publication of the decision concerning the 6 strategic goals. If you're interested, I can explain that.
Could you say briefly why this decision was published in November 93?
Prvo, moj odgovor.
Here is my answer. Before I came across the relevant documents, I was not able to remember why it was published at a later date. What I will say now has to do with the documents that I came by during my appeal, and it will be based on the documents that I was able to peruse whilst I was preparing to testify for Mr. Jovanovic. First of all, on the 9th of June 1992, at the session, which was of a consultative character, the following decision was taken: that the strategic goals and the map of the Serbian Republic of Bosnia-Herzegovina be published and that they be sent to the international community. This was the penultimate item of the agenda of the extended meeting of the presidency. It can be easily located, and I have the relevant minutes here with me. After that, an enactment was developed, namely conclusions which explicitly state what Mr. Karadzic stated at the meeting held on the 12th of May 1992, or rather at the session held on that date. This differs from the text of the decision as published later, and I have that particular document as well. I had signed it. Next, and this is something that I'm speculating about, it wasn't clear whether it was decided whether it should be published in the official gazette or whether it should simply be published, provided to the public. Somebody corrected the minutes in their own hand, and this was something that I was able to find out on Saturday. I can also explain why it was that I only realized this last Saturday and not before. In this way, the conclusions were formulated in the form in which the decision was in fact published on the 25th of February 25th of October 1993. The decision was ultimately typed out, but you can see that at the very session, the decision did not state that the strategic goals should be published in the official gazette. It was merely said that it will be made public, because one cannot publish the map in the official gazette. That's why I gather that the intention was simply to have the decision known to the public rather than publish it in the official gazette. Let me just give you an aside. Orders and binding mandatory documentation is published in the official gazette. One would not publish conclusions in the official gazette. For that reason, the decision was not published in the official gazette. Now we come to the year 1993. We had it in the archives, but it had not been published in the official gazette. Next, in the month of October of 1993, a report on the 4 years work of the Assembly of the Republika Srpska was being prepared. A lawyer came to my office and he was describing to me the events of the 4 years that will be included in the report, and he came across that decision and he made a note in which he said the decision was not registered anywhere in the Republika Srpska documentation or signed. At that point, I must have signed the decision because it bears my signature, and it was forwarded for publication. This report, which was published in October of 1993, makes reference to the fact that the Assembly had debated or adopted strategic goals, and I'm referring to the Assembly meeting of the 12th of May 1992. I have all the paperwork that I refer to. I have it here. I can show it to you. Now, why did I not give this to Mr. Jivanovic? I had not been aware of the corrections or the minutes that were made while I was testifying. I only learnt about this during my appeal because my investigators gave me numerous documents. The decision had been published in 10 copies or more, and enclosed with it was the transcript from the Assembly meeting, complete with the two documents I mentioned, the two conclusions. It was on the basis of these documents that I was able to make the necessary links that I lacked, pointing to the reason why the decision was not published in 1992, but rather in 1993. Now, on the 20th of June 1992, the decision had gone through the protocol. It was entered into the protocol book or the log book. And we have that particular log book dating back from 1992. All the documents were entered under the 12th of May, whereas this particular decision was entered into the logbook under the date of the 20th of July. This is the extent of the information I was able to come by and that I wished to convey to the trial chamber in order to try and explain why the events took this course. And this is the extent of the knowledge that I referred to while I was testifying a moment ago.
Merci, Madame. Mr.
Thank you, Madam.
Your Honor, we will not have cross-examination for this witness.
I haven't seen the transcript as yet. All right. Thank you. Mr. Haynes?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Which means Mr. Nichols. Now, Mr. Jovanovic had estimated 9 to 10, actually 9 hours for the for the examination in chief of this witness, and yeah. But I have also another document which says 6 hours. How long do you anticipate your cross-examination will last? Or will take?
Your Honors, I anticipate I'll go into tomorrow. I'll have to go through the transcript tonight. I think I will be able to cut it down somewhat, but I will, I think, have a few hours. There's some new information here that I frankly don't completely understand.
Yeah, a few hours. What do you mean by a few hours?
I think I can do it probably in less than my original estimate, perhaps two sets.
Okay, which, but do you anticipate you will need the whole of tomorrow?
No.
No, which means you need to have your next witness available tomorrow, Mr. Jovanovic. Which means other colleagues are going to stand up and say they are not yet prepared. Yes.
Oui, malheureusement, Monsieur le Président, c'est un témoin qui est un témoin.
Mr. President, this witness is very important for the defense of Popović. He arrived only this morning. He will have a session, a proofing session, and if we begin tomorrow, we will have no possibility to have this witness before he begins. And also, this is the same for other colleagues of the defense. This puts us in an impossible situation because we still haven't received the list of documents.
Referring to Lazic, I take it. Your next witness will be Milenko Lazic, or
Yes, that's correct.
That's correct. So what's the problem? What's the problem with that, Madame Popović?
Non, je crois qu'il y avait un problème d'interprétation.
I think there was a problem for interpretation. It's also for Beara and Popović defense and Militic. So the defense of Popović will have the opportunity to have a proofing session today with the witness, but the Beara defense and Militic defense will not have this possibility.
Yeah, but we can't go on like this. I mean, I made it. That's why when we had the pre-defense conference, I said, and I repeated it for I don't know how many times, that you need to organize yourselves. We are not here to waste time. Tomorrow we start with Lazic, and you will need to tell us beforehand, Mr. Zivanovic, whether you will still intend to utilize the 17.5 hours that you had indicated, or whether you will do as you did today, cut down from 9 hours to 1 hour.
17.5 hours is time estimated for my examination of examination of my colleagues and cross-examination. My examination,
including everyone.
Yeah.
Anyway, tomorrow you will start with Lazic, and then we'll try to organize ourselves in a way that if you need to go last, you will go last, and similarly, if the Beara team needs more time, we'll make arrangements accordingly. But we start with Lazic tomorrow.
Monsieur le Président, est-ce qu'on peut aller brièvement dans...
Mr. President, could we go close session, private session briefly, please?
Let's go into private session for a short while. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, that I need to repeat to you that we need to organize ourselves, or rather you need to organize ourselves accordingly. We have our own problems. When this happens, we have to liaise with our staff because things or events drop on us, and we have to react accordingly. So, as I take it, you may find yourself, when I say you, it could be whoever, I don't know who will be in charge of Lazic, that you may find yourself needed to cross-examine this witness even earlier than you may have anticipated. Which in turn leads me to another problem. On paper, we were looking at this week and a good part of next week almost entirely devoted to Krajisnik and Lazic. It may well turn out to be different. Don't bring us to the situation, Mr. Zivanovic, when we approach one of the days towards the end of this week with no witnesses here present here in the Hague to give evidence.
Your Honor, we do our best to bring the next witnesses as soon as possible. Thank you.
All right. Otherwise, I can guarantee you full cooperation from the trial chamber, but don't put us in an impossible position, because we have responsibilities of our own and accountability of our own. Yes, Mr. Nichols, you can start your cross-examination.
I just want to say very briefly, Your Honors, as you recognized, it can create problems for us as well in our scheduling, and
of course,
and so that if I also understand that estimates change, but if we could be informed as soon as possible that that a direct is going to be cut by 75%, that would be helpful.
And it would be helpful not only to you, but and to the other defense teams, but definitely also to the trial chamber and our staff, because we usually have detailed one member of the staff to examine and report back to us on each witness that is anticipated. Yes, Mr. Nichols.
Thank you, Your Honors. Sir, Mr. Bourgogne briefly started talking about your role, the role that you played during the time that you were Speaker of the Republika Srpska Assembly. Remember that?
Sjećam.
I do.
And he asked you, I don't have it on my screen, but to confirm that it was never the purpose to, I'm paraphrasing, chase other ethnicities out of Bosnia-Herzegovina, correct?
Da.
Correct.
Let's talk a little bit briefly about your role in that conflict. You've been convicted in this building of crimes against humanity, correct?
Da.
Yes.
You've been convicted of murder or extermination of approximately 3,000 human beings, correct?
Ja nisam.
I haven't come here to testify about my role, but rather of the 6 strategic goals, or should I say of 2 of those. That's why I would like to ask the trial chamber to allow me not to answer these questions. If we may focus on the central issues for which I was called to appear here. I would not wish to be misunderstood, or I would not wish my statements to be abused for the purposes of my appeal. That is a separate case that I will be dealing with.
I'm going briefly to some questions that go directly to the witness's credibility. These are simply facts I wish to put on the record.
Go ahead. If we need to explain to the witness the correct position at law, we will do so. But in the meantime, I think you can move safely to your next question.
You were also found guilty and criminally responsible for the forcible removal of more than 100,000 Muslims and Croats. Correct? That's what your trial judgment says in paragraph 1144.
Ja sam osuđen za
I was convicted for ethnic cleansing and persecutions, and I don't know what number that is.
And since Mr. Bourgon brought up your role, in assessing your responsibility, the trial chamber found that your involvement in your position was crucial to the commission of the crimes charged in the prosecution's indictment, correct?
Yes, Mr. Jovanovic.
I would object to this question because it goes to analyze the judgment in the another case, in the case of the witness.
Goes directly to his credibility, Your Honor.
It's a direct question which is very simple to answer if the witness is au courant of or knows the details of the judgment that was handed down against him. The question is a very simple one, whether it's he agrees fact that the trial chamber that decided his case found that his involvement and his position was crucial to the commission of the crimes charged in the prosecution indictment. It's not whether he believes it was so or not, or whether he agrees with the decision of the trial chamber, but whether the trial chamber actually did decide in that manner, in that way. So, Mr. Krajisnik, from your recollection of the final judgment of the trial chamber, do you agree that the trial chamber found in your respect that your involvement was crucial to the commission of the crimes charged in the prosecution indictment in your case? Now, whether you agree with the finding is another matter. We are not asking you to comment on that.
Pretesno vijeće je donijelo.
The trial chamber found that I was one of the key individuals in the joint criminal enterprise, which had as its goal the expulsion of the non-Serb population.
That should suffice. Yes, Mr. Nichols.
Thank you. Last question on this topic. You testified in your case for 40 days, paragraph 888 of the judgment, in a special section on your credibility, the trial chamber found that you were of, quote, very low credibility, end quote. Correct?
Tačno.
Correct.
All right. I want to go now to the 16th Assembly session, which you've discussed. As President of the Assembly, you chaired that session, right?
Da.
Yes.
And you chaired, correct, virtually, I think, all but one sessions of the RS Assembly.
Mislim da je tačno.
I believe that that's correct. There were meetings that I left earlier on, but I definitely participated in them. So my answer is I was present at all the sessions but one, though I may have left some of them early on. So I might have been present throughout or in part.
Could we have P25 up, please? That is the 16th Assembly session. While we're waiting for that to come up, at this same Assembly session, you recall the Army of the, what would become called the VRS, was established formally.
Da.
Yes.
And Ratko Mladic was appointed commander.
Da.
Yes.
Now, if we could go to the English, page 13. It's the, actually 13 in both, I believe. And I don't know if anybody has the English up. I don't. If anybody needs it. Okay. In any event, I just want to go over the way Karadzic enunciated the first strategic goal. I think my friend read the first part. I want to continue. The first such goal is separation from the other two national communities, separations of states. And then he continued. Separation from those who are our enemies and who have used every opportunity, especially in this century, to attack us, and who would continue with such practices if we were to continue to stay together in the same state.
Top of the page, please, on the screen.
Ne znam šta je pitanje vaše.
I don't know what your question is.
I haven't gotten to my question yet.
A, izvinjam se.
Apologize.
You recall Karadzic saying that at the session?
Ne sjećam se.
I don't recall him saying that, but I believe his submission was along these lines. I don't remember his exact words.
See it in the transcript.
Da, znam, vidim.
Yes, I do. I see it.
Clearly, he is talking about the separation of peoples.
Ne govori.
Not about the separation of peoples. I can explain to you why he used such terms, because I knew the background and I knew what his intention was.
Your answer then is no. It is not about separation of people.
Ne.
No.
Okay. Let's go quickly now to the 42nd Assembly Session, 65, turn number 3305, page 1 in the English, page 71 in the BCS. I previously had a little difficulty getting this correctly into eCourse, so I hope it comes up now. And this is, excuse me. Sorry, and this is the 18th and 19th of July, 1994. Page 71 of the BCS. And it should be on a numbered page 1 in the English. The part I want you to focus on is as follows. We know for sure that we have to give something up.
Where is it roughly in the page top, first half, second half, upper, lower half, what?
It's at the bottom of page 71, excuse me, on the top of page 72 in the BCS.
In English, I'm not bothered about the...
In the English, it's in the middle paragraph.
Okay,
It's correctly up on the screen now in English.
yeah, okay.
But for the witness, we need to go to the next page, 71, as I said. I'll read it out while we're waiting, and if you need to read it in the screen, you can. Dr. Karadzic said at this session, "We know for sure that we have to give something up. That is clear beyond a shadow of a doubt. If we wish to achieve our primary strategic aim, which is to get rid of the enemies in our house, the Croats and Muslims, and not to be in the same state with them anymore." Again, this is Dr. Karadzic talking about not being in the same state with the persons of other ethnicities, correct?
Ne, nije.
That is not correct.
Drugačije tumačenje.
The interpretation should differ. Had we explained it a moment ago, it would have been clear now. One needs to know what the basis, the background of this discussion was. As far as I can recall, it had to do with the plan put forth at the Assembly. Had I been able to see the agenda, I would have been able to tell you exactly what it was about.
And very briefly, if we can have P02755 up on the screen. This is the official Gazette of the Republika Srpska from the 26th of November, 1993. Publication on the decision on the strategic objectives for the Serbian people in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And let me just read in the preamble, which is under the number 386. At its session held on 12 May 1992, the Assembly of the Serbian people in Bosnia and Herzegovina adopted the following decision, and then it lists the 6 strategic objectives. Very briefly, just to be clear, we hadn't seen this, I don't think, yet in the direct. This publication refers to exactly the same the same strategic objectives enunciated in the 12th May session in Banja Luka, correct?
Ne, nije tačno.
It is not correct. These strategics differ from those formulated by Mr. Karadzic and differ from the conclusions I mentioned.
All right. Well, let's look at the 16th Assembly session and see what was spoken of there. Now, Bosanska Krupa was one of the municipalities of the ARC, Autonomous Region Krajina, correct?
Ne, nije.
No, not at first, because only one of its parts was a part of the ARK. I don't know when it became a part of the ARK, perhaps even after the end of the war. In any way, it didn't follow the same procedure that the other municipalities with the predominant Serb majority did.
Municipality west of Banja Luka, correct?
Praust.
You are right.
It's parts of it at least are along the Una River, correct?
S obe strane.
That municipality is on both sides of the Una.
Now, a man you know, Miroslav Viestica, was a member of the RS Assembly from Bosanska Krupa.
Tačno.
That is correct.
He attended the 16th Assembly session in Banja Luka.
Tačno.
That is correct.
He spoke at that assembly session.
Tačno.
That is correct.
And I see you remember, but anyway, let's go over what Mr. Viestica said. That's, again, 16th Assembly session, which is P25. If you go to page 25 of the English, beginning on page 21 at the bottom, I guess, of the BCS. It may be on page 22 of the BCS, but what I still have on my screen is the prior assembly session, or later assembly session. That's right, thank you. Now let me go through a little bit of what Mr. Viestica said. And this will take a moment, Your Honor, for me to read this. I want to put it in. Mr. President, esteemed people's deputies, members of the presidency, and dear guests, I will briefly inform you of the situation in the theater of war in the Serbian municipality of Bosanska Krupa. And then he talks about how he will try to be brief. And he begins immediately talking about the 6 strategic goals which he has heard that day on 12th May in Banja Luka. I give my full consent to all the strategic goals that have been proposed, but I would like to note that individuals must be appointed and operationalized who shall be responsible for carrying out the activities related to each individual goal. Because I do not believe it is sufficient to declare here that the Sava River is our border, and then learn in the course of the day that Bosanski Brod has fallen, and that there are no more Serbs there, and so on. And he continues a little bit further down. What have we done in the Serbian municipality of Bosanska Krupa? I must tell you, to remind you all, that Serbs comprise only 24% of the Serbian municipality of Bosanska Krupa. There are 14,500 of us, and there are 47,000 Muslims. As our president has said, we in the Serbian municipality of Bosanska Krupa did not want the war, but we were forced into it. And for a little bit further down, he says, for a year and a half, we have been preparing for war in the Serbian municipality of Bosanska Krupa because we knew that there would be war and that it could not be avoided. And then he continues and begins to talk about what is going on now on the ground in Krupa. Thank God we did get to our borders, because that's how we had envisioned them and drawn them, and you, people's deputies, know well that we had said that the right bank of the Una River would be our border, and that the right bank of the Una River must be the border, after all, the natural border of the Serbian Republic of BH. And it continues. That was what we kept claiming, and that was why we did get to the right bank of the Una River. This was where we stopped, where we dug in. We have mined the right bank. We have mined the iron bridge. The wooden one we have blown up. And now we are preparing for Bosanska Otoka. God willing, in 2 to 3 days, we shall mine the bridge in Bosanska Otoka, connecting it with Bosanski Novi. This will be done, I guarantee it. What are our adversaries doing? At the moment, they're all in Kazin Krajina. On the right bank of the Una River, there are no more Muslims in the Serbian municipality of Bosanska Krupa. All the enclaves that were there, Rapusha, Veliki, Popović, Ostranica, Babić, Muslim Yatsenica, and Zavir, we have evacuated them. So there will be none there for the duration of war operations. Will they have a place to return to? I think it is unlikely. After our president told us the happy news that the right bank of the Una River was the border. He continues on the next page to discuss the disarming which is taking place by the SDS in Bosanski Novi and Sanski Most. And he says, I think the Muslims will be disarmed there as well. Now, your response as the next speaker to that speech by Mr. Viestica, which is on page 22 of the BCS and page 26 of the English, is thank you. And then you tell who's going to speak next. Mr. Viestica told you in that session about what was happening in Bosanska Krupa, correct?
Šta se desilo?
What happened?
He told you, perhaps you knew this at the time, that only 24% of the population was Serb, right? That was in his speech to you? Correct?
Da, rekao.
Yes, he said 4%. I believe he said that. That's when he stated the figure.
And he told you what had happened in his municipality to the Muslim population, right?
Pa ovo što ste pročitali,
Vještica said what you read.
Mr.
It is
Zvanovic.
misstatement. He addressed to the assembly, not to the witness personally. As
But
far as
the witness was included and he was chairing. So what difference? Yes, Madame Favon.
Effectivement, c'est une mal.
In fact, this is a misinterpretation because Mr. Vieštitsa was only talking about the right bank of the Una River and he never mentioned the left bank of the Una River, whereas earlier we heard something else.
Mr. Nichols.
That is a totally inappropriate objection.
Yes, I agree with you. Let's proceed with your question, please.
Thank you. He told you and everyone else present.
Don't even need to
Thank
go
you.
into this because when you are in a meeting, you address the chair
Yeah,
in,
I'm
in
just-
any case. So
Thank you, Your Honor. That his understanding, after Mr. Karadic's enunciation of the strategic goals, was that the Muslims would not be allowed to return. That's what he said, didn't he?
Please, if you wanted the truth, then you should have shown us his interview to the prosecutor's office. It was all explained by Mr. Vieštitsa. I read that interview and I can offer you my interpretation. I can tell you what it was that I thought he was talking about. There is the OTP interview in which he explained it all. Let us have a look at the interview and you'll see what it is that he said.
Is not my question. My question is just that it's correct what we've got written down here. He said that his understanding was that the Muslims would not be allowed to return. That's what he said at the assembly session, correct?
I objasnio in
And he explained it in his interview to you as to what he meant.
The answer to my question is yes, and now you're referring to an interview. Right?
Pa mislim da je
Well, I think I'm being prevented from stating my answer in full, and my answer is what I said.
Madame Favon.
De toute façon, je pense que monsieur.
At any rate, I believe that the prosecutor should not say that the Muslim were not able to come back. Where exactly?
I have no idea what the objection is.
I don't either. It's probably that there is no specificity as to where exactly they would not be able to return. Well, I think we can move on to your next question, Mr. Nichols. Otherwise, we're gonna go into the argument what the right bank of the Una River meant, whether it was restricted to that part relating to Bosanska Krupa or whether it extended to other sections. Let's move to your next question,
Okay.
please.
If I can just say, for the record, I think it's pretty clear from the text. It says the Muslims have been evacuated from these enclaves in our municipality. They won't be allowed to return. I want to talk.
Yes, he answered the question. Let's move, Mr. Bugon.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, let's move to your next question, please.
I want to talk now, the time we have left today, about some events shortly after the 16th Assembly session. All right?
izvolite.
Go ahead.
You could have 65 to 3252, please. This is from the first page in both languages. This is a 1st Partisan Brigade Command document from the 12th of June, 2006. excuse me, that's not correct, the 14th of May, 1992, of a meeting which took place amongst members of presidents of various Serbian municipalities in the ARC area and some military commanders. We can see the agenda is number 1, review of the military and political situation in the municipalities. Number 3, messages from the meeting of the Armed Forces of Serbian Krajina and the Army of the Serbian Republic of Bosnia-Herzegovina in Banja Luka on 12 May 1992. Present are at this meeting, I'll go through some of them, Commander of the 30th Partisan Division, Stanislav Galic, Colonel Stanislav Galic. Commander of the 6th Partisan Brigade, Colonel Branko Basara, who was then the 6th Krajina Brigade Commander later. Chief of the 30th Division, Lieutenant Colonel Stevan Kokovic, and the commander of the TO for Kluč, Major Bosko Lukic, President of Kluč Municipality, Jovo Banjac, and others. We go now to page 3. It's page 3 in both languages. The president of the Mrkonjić municipality, Milan Malija, presented the conclusions from the meeting held in Banja Luka. Now first, and you answered this when you questioned at it before in your own trial, Mr. Malija attended the 16th Assembly session, correct?
Mr. Maliji was a deputy. He was probably at the meeting. He was both a deputy and the municipal president.
And the strategic goals, if we look at the top of the page, formulated at the meeting in Banja Luka were presented. And we'll list them. 1, there must be a state separation of the 3 national communities. 2, so the corridor, Krajina must be connected with Serbia along the bank of the Sava. 3, creation of a corridor along the Drina River Valley so that Serbian people control both the left and right bank of the Drina River. And 4, establishing the borders of the Una River. Those six strategic goals from 2 days earlier in Banja Luka are now being discussed at this meeting, right?
You can see from this piece of paper that there was some such discussion at that meeting.
Right. And if we go to the next page, bottom of page 3 in the English, it's on for the BCS. At the end of the meeting, Colonel Galic proposes implementation of the decisions of the meeting in Banja Luka, but submit them to commands of units and municipalities. And these conclusions are unanimously adopted. This is now the strategic goals being submitted immediately 2 days later to military commanders in the field, correct?
It is not. This is the only discussion in all of the documents I received that took place after the meeting, and I went through all of the documents when I was in Belgrade. On that day, I was in Belgrade.
This document, I'm not talking about other documents or documents you couldn't find, shows that the goals are disseminated to military leaders, correct? The military is briefed on the strategic objectives, correct?
Nije tako.
It is not correct. This was a local meeting at which a deputy informs the audience of the events at the assembly session. And this was not a lonely example. It wasn't the goal per se that people should be informed and disseminated throughout Republika Srpska concerning the strategic goals.
And there is no reference anywhere in this document or in some of the other documents we'll look at to Mr. Malija, who was present at the session, explaining to all these military and local SDS leaders that these are purely political objectives tied to the Cutulero Agreement. In fact, there's a vote to implement these goals on the ground, right? Do you agree?
No. Mr. Prosecutor, on the 9th of June, an order was issued to inform the general public about the strategic goal and the map of the Serbian Republic of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and that the same should be disseminated to the international community. In other words, an order was issued for that to be disseminated in the general public. I can provide you with the minutes so you can see for yourself. It was on the 9th of June, only a little bit later than this.
Why would that be done on the 9th of June if the entire session, as you say, was open to the public like every session and covered by the press and everybody knew what was announced there already?
This is my conclusion. On the 9th of June, a decision was made to draw an instruction for the implementation of the Geneva Convention. This was done by Karadzic, Mladic, and the Minister of Defense. And it was said, okay, let's inform the general public as to what we want to achieve from the negotiations, send the strategic goals to the general public, show them the map, and inform the general community. To the European community or international community. I can provide you with the minutes and you can find it there.
I think I have time for one more question on this document. The third strategic goal, as published and basically as discussed, I'll try to get the exact language. Establishment of a corridor in the Drina River Valley and the eradication of the Drina River as a border between the Serbian states. That's what it says in the Gazette. You've explained that, if I understood you correctly, that what the third strategic goal was about was ease of border crossing. For psychological reasons, you shouldn't have to use a passport, you can just use your local ID, right? Did I get your explanation correct of what strategic goal 3 was?
The third strategic goal contains 2 of our requests to be presented during the negotiations. One was to allow us to have special links and not to have to use passports to cross the Drina. And second of all, an exchange of territories in order to end up with a corridor linking up our corridors and to have Muslim enclaves across that areas. That is the essence of that strategic goal.
Last question for today. So Milan Malija who was present at the 16th Assembly session, got it terribly wrong 2 days later when he explained what Strategic Goal 3 was, when he said creation of a corridor along the Drina River Valley so that the Serbian people control both the left and the right banks of the Drina River. Is that right?
Every person who interprets a thing interprets that thing the way they find fit at the moment. I'm not saying that this is done on purpose. I'm not saying that he did it on purpose in order to play to the gallery. But he did not interpret the way we envisaged for that strategic goal to be implemented.
We need to stop there for today. We'll resume tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Thank you.
All rise, if you will.